Hello and welcome to LFC Focus. It is post-match reaction showtime after Liverpool have just beaten Ajax at Anfield by 1-0 to not only book their place in the knockout stages of the Champions League, but also give themselves an unassailable lead at the top of the group, which means we will finish first in our Champions League group, and that will therefore give us a favourable draw in those knockout stages as well. And Liverpool did it by putting in what was a very, very good performance as well. I think there are so many positives to take from this game. It certainly cheered me up after what I think has been a difficult week for Liverpool fans, and not only because of everything that's gone on, but also because when we finally actually get to sit down and watch Liverpool play football, it hasn't necessarily been up to the usual very high standard that we've come to expect from this club, and that is through no fault of their own. That's not because of anything the coaches or the players are doing wrong. It's simply because of the current situation, the amount of games they're playing. There are a lot of heavy legs out on the pitch at the moment, and it tells with the way that they deliver performance-wise. But I thought today they gave probably one of the best games that we've seen from Liverpool so far this season. And that's not to say that they dominated Ajax. I certainly think it was a game that swung to and fro all the way through. Obviously, once Liverpool take the lead, they start to exert a more vice-like grip over the game. And you certainly feel like even when Ajax have the ball and are in our half and stuff like that, Liverpool are the ones who are actually in control of proceedings. But before that, certainly for the first hour of the match, there was never more than a 5-minute spell where one team really had control. It was both teams kind of gradually finding their feet, having a few chances, and then the other team would come at them. It was the kind of game that you want to see in the European Cup. You know, two European giants, Liverpool of England versus Ajax of Holland, going toe-to-toe on the biggest stage imaginable. And I just really enjoyed it. It's certainly cheered me up after, like I said, what has been a difficult couple of weeks. And like I said, there are so many positives to take from the game. I'm going to start with the goalkeeper because that was, of course, the first big moment of the night was when the lineup got dropped and it was revealed that KELLEHER was starting over Adrian San Miguel. Of course, Alisson has this issue, and it'll be interesting to see just how long he remains out for. Jurgen Klopp said that he's been kept out as a precaution, but as Klopp said also, it's a hamstring issue, and he's never known a hamstring issue that lasts less than 10 or 14 days. So he suggested that Alisson also won't be available for the game against Wolves, and on the evidence of the game tonight, that's maybe not as big a problem as we maybe thought it was going to be, because I thought KELLEHER did, oh, there it goes again, very, very well on what was his European debut for Liverpool. I think you can talk about the fact that maybe he didn't have too many saves to make, although the saves that he does make are absolutely excellent. He gets down well for a few of them. There's that one very, very late on in the game as well from Klaas-Jan Huntelaar, where you can argue that maybe it's quite close to him, you know, with the one with about 5 minutes to go where Huntelaar is left unmarked in the box. Fabinho lets him go and he has a header from about 8 yards out or something like that. And yes, it's close to KELLEHER. It's probably around about up here if you were to imagine that I am in the same position as him. Obviously, he is the one who is the first choice goalkeeper for Liverpool, and I'm the one stood here talking about it. But he does very well to still push the ball away. I can think of countless Liverpool goalkeepers from the past few years, Adrian included. I think, not to be rude to the fella, but I think it's a fair thing to say. We've seen this happen in the past when he's been wearing a Liverpool shirt, who would have flapped at that, who would have maybe only just got a fingertip to it or even let it go through their hands and in. He gets two solid hands to it, pushes it away, and that just fills everyone around him with confidence. And I thought that was another thing he did really, really well, and why I felt like he really earned his clean sheet, because not only did he make big saves when it was asked of him, he always looked like a Liverpool goalkeeper. And it's kind of why I've been saying on this channel for a few weeks now that if we're not going to play Alisson, whether it's through injury or through rotation or any other reason whatsoever, I'd rather see one of these younger lads than see Adrian, because the Adrian ship has sailed, if you ask me. I just think he's had his opportunities now, and yes, he's done well in the past, but it never looks like anyone is comfortable with him being Liverpool's goalkeeper, and that's the most important thing. I think he can make saves and he can have good games here and there, but when he's in that starting 11, the defence doesn't look the same. They look edgy, they look nervous, they don't want to play the way they usually do, they don't want to pass back to him or anything like that. But it always felt like KELLEHER was in tune with his back line today. He came off his line when he needed to, he claimed crosses, he came out for the ball, he did everything that you'd expect of Alisson, and that's why I've been saying play one of the younger lads, because Adrian is not a Liverpool goalkeeper at the end of the day. Yes, he's a shot stopper. Yes, he's still a professional goalkeeper who's played in the Premier League, so he can do a job, if you will. But he's not a Liverpool goalkeeper in the same way that KELLEHER, a lad who's been with our academy for several years now and has been trained to basically be a mini Alisson Becker. He suits the role a lot better, and now he's had this experience of playing a European game against a team as good as Ajax. You know, let's not forget, just because we beat them 1-0 in both of our games, they still gave us good matches. And if you look over to Holland, they are far and away of most of the competition in that league as well. So they're no mugs whatsoever. And KELLEHER did not look phased, did everything that was asked of him. And this is a huge, huge step forward from in his Liverpool career. And I think from now on, he should be the backup goalkeeper for Liverpool, and I imagine he will be. The way Jurgen Klopp bursts straight onto the pitch after the full-time whistle, he sort of strolls over, handshake for Erik ten Hag, and then he sprints onto that pitch, straight into the arms of KELLEHER. It feels like he's so happy for him, and I think he's definitely got big plans for the young Irish goalkeeper going forward. So that was just one of many, many things that filled me with joy from this game. And like I said, the rest of the Liverpool team performed very, very well as well. I think if you had to pick a man of the match, I wouldn't look much further than Curtis Jones. Even though KELLEHER played well, I think that everything that Liverpool did today that was good and that was effective and that caused Ajax problems, it felt like Curtis Jones was at the heart of it. Not just the goal, of course, you know, when he's the man who scores the goal that puts Liverpool through to the knockout stage of the Champions League and secures top spot in the group, then it's hard to look any further for the man of the match award based on that alone. But I thought all the way through the 90 minutes, he was commanding in midfield. He was an authoritative presence. He caused Ajax problems. They looked threatened when he was on the ball. He could drive at them. His passing was good. He got into the box quite consistently as well, which you don't normally expect from a Liverpool midfielder, and it's something that's both been sort of used as a positive for Curtis Jones, but also not necessarily as a stick to beat him with, but something that's been highlighted as something you should work on, which is he does love to get forward, and I think that was definitely on show last season. It felt like he was a great attacking midfielder. He had so much flair, he was so good technically, and he loved to drive at people. But there was the flip side of that, which meant that he was occasionally caught out positionally, and he wasn't as good defensively as other midfielders like Wijnaldum and Jordan Henderson, who seemed to suit the system a lot better than Jones did at first. And I think from the start of this season, it's been clear that that has been worked on, that Curtis Jones is now being moulded into a Liverpool number 8, a Jurgen Klopp number 8 that fits the system perfectly. And for the first few months, it looked like it was a bit of a difficult transition. I think he played within himself a little bit. He didn't quite look like the creative player that we saw that first burst on the scene at Liverpool. And that was slightly concerning for me. I thought, is it going to work out for Curtis Jones at Liverpool? Maybe he's just a great player that doesn't quite suit our system, which is heartbreaking. But those sort of things happen. But based on today's evidence, I thought he found the balance perfectly. He never looked wanting defensively. It never looked like we were leaving gaps because of him being there. I do think that was slightly facilitated by the fact that Nico Williams played a little bit more reserved than he usually does. I think part of that is also because of what's been going on with Nico Williams at the moment, and I'll come on to that in a moment. But Robertson certainly felt like the more attacking of the fullbacks, and that was potentially because Curtis Jones was playing on that right-hand side for a large portion of the game, although, of course, it was very, very fluid. He dropped from side to side depending on where the space was, and that was also very, very positive to see. The fact that he gelled as a member of the midfield, he looked like part of the three. And I think if there's one issue we have had this season, it's that, well, we've had plenty of issues, but one thing that has stood out is that because we've rotated in the midfield so much, sometimes it's looked like 3 very good players who aren't very good at playing together, if that makes sense. I think you look back to maybe the game against who is it? Aston Villa, the 7-2, who could forget? But you think of the midfield for that game was Fabinho, Gini Wijnaldum and Naby Keita. All 3 of them brilliant midfielders, but on the night, it just didn't come together at all. Whereas tonight, 3 brilliant midfielders who came together brilliantly. They all did their roles superbly. They all worked for each other. And I think that credit has to go to Gini and Henderson for that as well, because Curtis Jones doesn't put in that man of the match performance if his other 2 midfielders aren't working around him and compensating for everything that Curtis Jones does. And I thought all 3 of them worked very well. But like I said, Curtis Jones was just instrumental to everything good that Liverpool did tonight. Defensively as well, I thought as the game wore on, we used him more as a presence in the box. Of course, he's got that height, which is a huge positive as well. I know Jurgen Klopp does like to have players who are physically imposing as well as technically gifted, and height is, of course, an important thing when it comes to set pieces and when teams are going to start pumping the ball into the box, as Ajax eventually kind of did start doing once Huntelaar was on the pitch later on in the game. So he started dropping deep, Curtis Jones, and he did very well there as well. He was clearing the ball, he was seeing danger, he was positioning himself well, well. And I think just it was the complete midfield performance, and probably the first time that's happened from Curtis Jones. He's had great games for Liverpool in the past, games where he's been man of the match, games where he's decided it as well, looking back to that derby way back in what feels like a lifetime ago in January last season. But this is the first time he felt like he was the full package. He looked like a Jurgen Klopp midfielder today, and that comes from the amount of games he's played. And it's one positive that does come from all of these injuries and the relentless onslaught of games, is that lads like Curtis Jones are getting runs in the team, and they are making the absolute most of it, and long may it continue, because while we are short of midfielders, lads like Curtis Jones bursting onto the scene and absolutely bossing it is what you want to see. And I haven't even mentioned his goal, which was of course absolutely brilliant as well. It's a great piece of improvisation. He doesn't know that ball's going to arrive at his foot until the very last minute when it does sail over the goalkeeper, and he does well to use the outside of his boot from that narrow angle, send it into the far corner, and send Liverpool through to the knockouts of the Champions League. And of course that goal came from a cross from Nico Williams, who has had an interesting time of it of late. It's certainly been a roller coaster, these early stages of his career. He's burst onto the scene at Liverpool. We've all seen what he has to offer. He's been brilliant at times. He's got great qualities. He has the raw ability to be a very effective understudy to Trent Alexander-Arnold, but there have been issues as well, and issues that naturally come with a young player. And I think what was really good tonight was that I think he actually played himself into a good performance, which he maybe hasn't had the opportunity to do in the past. It's been quite a few times he's been subbed at half-time, or he's come on as a substitute, or he's come off on around the hour mark and stuff like that. Tonight he played the full 90 minutes, and he certainly reaped the rewards of it. I think early on he looked a little bit shaky, and I think it was certainly justified that he occupied that more withdrawn position. It reminds me a little bit of when Trent Alexander-Arnold first started out at Liverpool, and if you look at the lad's assist numbers, Trent's numbers, I know he's got like assist records for the last 2 seasons, but before that, when he burst on the scene in the latter stages of the 17-18 season, he actually only picks up like 2 assists or something like that, because he's asked to do a lot more defending, because Jurgen Klopp knows that's what he needs to work on. We know that Trent's a great deliverer of the ball. He's great going forward. He's a fantastic creator, but he had to work on the kind of the basics of being a right back, because of course Trent was also being moved from a centre midfield role. Nico Williams sort of knows the basics already, but I think just needs to get a little bit better at them, and that's maybe why he's been asked to take up a more defensive role tonight. But I thought as the game wore on, a few shaky moments in the earlier stages, but he got better and better. He looked more and more assured. I think his teammates certainly looked more comfortable passing to him and involving him in tight spaces and stuff like that. And then of course once he makes that cross that leads to the goal, that gives him an extra boost as well. And from there on in, I don't think he really put a foot wrong. He actually looked like a hell of a player for the last half hour of the match, and that certainly helped Liverpool, of course, with Ajax going a little bit more hell for leather trying to get an equaliser. So yet another positive from the game. I thought Nico Williams improved in match, and going forward that is going to be huge for us, given that Trent Alexander-Arnold is currently injured and will certainly need a capable understudy as the season wears on and this endless onslaught of constant games continues to come at us. So Nico Williams, brilliant. Curtis Jones, man of the match. Kevin Kelleher, absolutely wonderful European debut. There are too many brilliant things to say about this match. I think everyone else was fantastic as well. The attack didn't quite click, but that I think was more down to fatigue than anything else. As I said, I thought Henderson and Wijnaldum did great alongside Curtis Jones. Robertson looked a threat but did well defensively. Matip and Fabinho very, very assured at centre-half. I thought Firmino looked like a threat when he came on as well. You know, very good close control, caused problems, was a little bit more sort of cheeky than maybe the other attackers who started the game. They were all very direct, looking to just get the ball over the top and drive at the Ajax defence, whereas Firmino brought a bit of flair to proceedings and I think balanced out the front three a little bit. And I certainly thought we looked better once it came on. No disrespect to Jota, I think it just made the overall dynamic of the attack look a little bit more functional. So that is another positive as well, that Firmino looks like he's playing himself back into form. And of course it also means that not only have we got a 5-day rest after this game, which feels like a godsend at the moment, that is gold dust to Jurgen Klopp and his staff and his players, pardon me, but we've also got a dead rubber next week as well with the Wednesday night match against Midtjylland, and it'll be interesting to see how Jurgen Klopp approaches it. Personally, if I was in his position, as long as it doesn't put you in trouble with UEFA for doing so, and I know there are certain rules around this that you can't like throw a game and you can't field what is a weakened side, you kind of have to send first teamers regardless. But if I was in his position, I'd treat this like Shrewsbury last season and the cup game against Villa in the League Cup, where just send the kids, give them the experience, let them all go on holiday, enjoy themselves. They hopefully won't get battered, because while Midtjylland are a Champions League side, they are still the lowest side in the group, although of course they got that draw against Atalanta today, which is what has allowed Liverpool to treat that game as a dead rubber. So we've kind of got them to thank for it in a way. But in a season like this, a season like no other, as it's been said time and time again, the opportunity to give the entire first team a week's rest is too good to miss. So honestly, Jurgen, if you're watching, do what you like. I mean, if you're looking for a centre-half, I quite fancy it. If you fancy, play yourself up front, put Carroll and Caroline at full-back, give Michael Edwards a run out in midfield. Honestly, do whatever the hell you like. Enjoy yourself, because the fact of the matter is Liverpool are through to the knockout stage of the Champions League, and they are through as group winners. And finally, under Jurgen Klopp, we have managed to do that with a game to spare as well. So that is all for today's video. Thank you guys very, very much for watching. If you did enjoy the video as well, you know what to do. Hit the like button down there. Hit that subscribe button there if you're new around here. Check out some of the other videos that have been out on the channel over the past few days. Don't forget to follow at LFC Focus TV on Twitter. And I'll be back soon with the pre-match content for the game against Wolves. Until then, bye for now.